Hey guys, and welcome back to another Twinfinite Gamers video, and welcome to devlog number 1 of my Scratch RPG game. I've actually always wanted to make an RPG-like game in Scratch, so yeah, hopefully this turns out really well. And by zooming in really far in bitmap mode, you can get this pixel effect if you set your pin size to 1, and that's really cool, and I'm going to be using that. But the thing is, you have to change the size really high or else you're not going to be able to see it, so I struggled a little bit with that, but overall I think I got a really cool effect. And then I started to make a screen that would cover the entire map with pixels so that if I ever wanted to make like levels, I could know exactly how big the screen is, so I know how much stuff I can actually fit on one screen with the levels. And now you can see I have a canvas that perfectly covers the whole screen that I can just recolor if I ever want to make a backdrop. And then I tried drawing the player. It took a little bit of trial and error, but I eventually got it to a point where I liked it. And then I tried to get the player size to a point that I liked it and it fit the game that I was imagining really well. Then I worked on an idle animation for the player so that if you weren't moving, it would look like he was actually like doing something. In the case I wanted it, I wanted to like bend down and then go upwards again, and I thought it looked really cool. Then I tried making a walking animation for the player, but after a lot of trial and error, I couldn't get it to a point where I really liked it, so I ended up just scrapping the idea and saving it for like another time or something. And now it's time for our first bits of code. I wanted to code it so that if you're not pressing like any keys, it would play the idle animation. And after testing it out, it worked really well, except it went a little fast, so I made it wait 0.5 seconds between frames instead of 0.1 seconds, and it worked out really well, and it looked pretty nice too, so yeah, I'm going to definitely go with this. After that, I wanted the player to be able to move, so I just put a bunch of if-then blocks down, and then put some stuff in it that senses if you press a key to make it move. And after testing it for a little bit, it works really well, so yeah, I'm really happy with it. But I wanted to separate the movement scripts and the idle scripts from each other so that it'd be easier for me to tweak code in the future, so yeah, that's what I'm doing right here. After that, I made like a costume that will start my walking animation, but I'm not going to actually do the walking animation. I just wanted to switch to that costume if you start moving. And then I made it sense if you're pressing a key to make it switch you to the walking costume. And after testing it, it worked. If I stopped moving, it would do the idle animation. If I started moving, it'd do what I had of the walking animation, which was nothing. So then I worked on making it so that if you touch the edge, you would stop and not go right through the edge. And after testing it, it worked, except whenever I touched the left and right walls, it would like go right through. So a little bit more tweaks to the code, and it actually worked, and I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this character is actually coming out. Next, I wanted him to actually point in the direction he was moving, so I did that by making his rotation style left, right, and pointing him in certain directions when he moves. And after testing it, it works, except it kind of looked like he was teleporting whenever he turned around. So I realized the issue was that he wasn't centered. I don't know why, but I fixed that, and it worked after that. And I didn't want this game's background to just be plain white, so I started working on making a background for the game that'd be a slightly darker shade of red than the character, so that you could actually see any characters or future enemies I import. And I thought it looked pretty cool at the end. And I'm thinking of making the background a little bit darker because it's kind of hard to see the character. So yeah, after a few tweaks and making the background a little bit darker, it looks a lot better. Yeah, that looks good. And now I'm working on making a sword because without a sword, this game could not go on because this is supposed to be an RPG, not a it is without a sword. Next, I tried coding the sword and it didn't turn out so great. I mean, guys, look at this. My sword is literally another me that doesn't even follow me. It doesn't work. But as you can see, after a lot of trial and error, I got a sword that actually works. It goes to the player and points to the mouse pointer, which is what I was going for. And then I wanted the sword to track if its position was weird, and so that it wouldn't, like, try to stab the player like it was looking like. So after a lot of trial and error and about like 15 minutes of this, I just ended up not doing it because it was so incredibly. It just made it so that the sword can go all around whenever it wanted. And then I started work on a feature where if you push space, your sword would release a slash effect, and it looked really cool at the end. Next, I started work on an enemy that's not going to be in the game forever, just I want it to have it for testing purposes. And here's what he looks like in game. He really doesn't do much, but he points towards the player, sort of. He kind of points in the opposite direction, but when you hit him, he flashes red for a little bit. So yeah. But with all that testing out of the way, it was time to actually draw a unique skin for this guy, because right now his skin was just the player. Yeah. So, I got to work drawing this guy in bitmap mode, and he turned out pretty well. And then I also made his idle animation, which I spent so long on. I had to move his head down. It took like hours. I'm just kidding. Okay. It took like 2 seconds. And now it was time to code this bad boy up, so I got to work coding. When it became necessary, I made the animation for when it gets hurt. And then I got back to coding the enemy. And here's what the first tests look like. As you can see, when I'm not close to him, he'll like be idle, and when I get close to him, he'll start chasing after me, and if I hit him, he'll blink and die. But when he blinked, he kind of looked like he was about to explode, so I just made it so that he blinked a little less, and then that kind of fixed the issue. Then I made it so that they spawn higher in the map, but they kind of looked really weird when they spawned up there, since you could only see the bottom half of them. So I knew I had to make them be able to move by themselves, so I started work on making a moving animation. But before that, I wasn't too happy with the animation that happened when it blinked by the sign it got hurt. So I used this trick that I have an add-on for, where I can make it have like an opacity slider, which makes it like be like a little transparent, which adds a really cool effect, and I thought it looks really cool. But before I show you that, I actually worked on making him be able to move like when they're not close to the player, because they looked a little weird just standing there when they weren't chasing the player. So yeah. Here it is in action. As you can see, I'm not close to them and they're moving around, and when I get close to them, they start chasing me. And yeah, it looks pretty cool. And after tweaking the code a little bit, as you can see, I can hit them and they die. But it's long past due. I started work on a walking animation for these guys, so that's what I'm doing here. And now I'm tweaking the code to account for when it's moving so that I can make it do the walking animation. And as you can see, it works. He's walking around and he's doing his walking animation. However, when I get close, the walking animation looks a little bit weird, like they're just trying to do something weird, so I'm gonna have to fix that. And a little bit of coding later, everything is fixed. As you can see, he's walking towards me, and the walking animation is as clear as day. Then I started adding health to the enemies, because it's no fun just being able to insta-shot them. And will it work? It does work. As you can see, I'm hitting the enemies and they're not dying instantly, and once I hit them enough, they die. Next, I wanted to add a little tutorial system to the very beginning of the game to end this devlog. So here I'm making some costumes for a tutorial system. Don't bother why the tutorial's name is Error. We'll get to that in our next devlog. And yeah, and after a little bit of coding, I had level 1 of the tutorial complete. Here it is in action. Hello, welcome to training level 1. Try to kill all the enemies in the room. 3, 2, 1. And then it spawns 3 enemies for level 1, an easy, normal amount, and yeah, after you kill them all, it should do the next thing, but I haven't actually coded it yet, so yeah. So I got to work making the costumes for level 2, and doing the code for level 2, and then level 2 turned out pretty well too. Here's level 2 in action. After I clear all the enemies in level 1, it says nice work, and then, yeah, I ran into a glitch already. Here's a working version. It says nice work, and then it says time for level 2, and then it gives you the countdown again. 3, 2, 1. I also made the countdown a little shorter between countdowns, and no enemies actually spawn yet. Here's an actual working version, I promise. After the countdown of level 2, it gives you 5 enemies instead of 3, which is not too big of a difference, but once I add health, which is coming in the next devlog or the third devlog, I'm not quite sure yet, it'll be a little hard. So then I started making level 3 because I want to get a lot of most of the tutorial done in this devlog. I don't feel like doing much of the tutorial in my next devlog, so yeah. And since I know it's gonna work, since I've already coded 2 other levels, I started work on level 4 without even testing level 3. And I wanted level 4 to add a new enemy, so I started prepping my other scripts to be able to handle a new enemy. By the way, I put in over 3 hours filming this devlog, so if you would please subscribe, it would mean a lot. So to add a new enemy, first you need the costume. So I started work on his costume, and I want it to look kind of like a bomb, since I wanted this to be an explosive enemy. I even made all his costumes for his idle animation, and his walking animation, and his hurt animation, and the animation he has when he's about to explode. And then I started work on an exploding animation, so that he would actually look like he was exploding when he exploded. And after importing all the code into Scratch, here's what it looked like. After you start level 4 and the countdown goes down, it'll spawn the enemies and some explosive enemies. And then if you get too close, the enemies will start chasing you like normal. And then if the explosive enemies get too close, they explode. And I did do a few tweaks to the explosion animation to make it more eye friendly, but yeah. So I hope you guys like this devlog. I spent a really long time on it, and I'm gonna try to post like weekly devlogs like this. And I have a lot planned for my second devlog, so stay tuned for that by subscribing, leaving a like, hit the bell. I hope you guys enjoyed this devlog. I think I already said that. But it really looks like a professional made these graphics, which I'm really happy with. They actually look like really cool. So, yeah, see ya.